Hello, everyone. I am Benny DeCecca, Chief Executive Officer of Validation Institute, and I'm joined today by the co-founder and CEO of Ceresti Health, Dirk Sungson. Hello, Dirk, and welcome.
Hi, Benny. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. For our audience, Ceresti Health is the leader in virtual care for patients with conditions that require high levels of family caregiver support, focusing quite a bit on Alzheimer's and other dementias. I'm glad to be speaking to you this morning, Dirk, because along with many others who may be listening to this, I am personally impacted by this having a mother with Alzheimer's. So, Dirk, Validation Institute recently audited and validated Ceresti's digital caregiver empowerment program for its ability to lower total medical costs over similar patients when their family caregiver enrolled in your program. So I was hoping that you could tell me more about Ceresti and that program.
Yeah, so absolutely. We're very pleased that Validation Institute did this work for us. What Ceresti essentially does is we take a family caregiver, think of like a spouse, an adult child of a Medicare Advantage member, and we enroll that person in a program, and we essentially are activating the caregiver. So that means we're increasing that caregiver's knowledge, skills, and confidence, which makes them best able to provide care for a loved one. We send a tablet to that caregiver, right? Some of the caregivers could be spouses 80 years old. So we send a tablet that doesn't require ability to use a smartphone. And on that tablet, we have personalized education. We match the caregiver with a social worker coach, and we ask the caregiver to participate in a form of remote monitoring. And then what we've seen in this program that once the caregiver starts to understand like how to better care for a loved one, it has a benefit of keeping their loved one out of the hospital and reducing overall medical spend.
That's amazing. And what makes that approach so unique to Ceresti?
So when you think about caregiving approaches, a lot of companies focused in sort of the caregiving space are focused primarily on the caregiver. So you have companies who say, I'm improving, let's say, the productivity of an employee who's also a caregiver, or I'm reducing their stress and burden. And that's their primary value proposition. We're kind of unique in that we are getting paid for the outcomes for the care recipient, but we're activating the caregiver. And then we say, look at the great outcomes for the care recipient, which is a member who's typically frail and elderly, many times will have dementia, stroke, or Parkinson's. So that's one aspect of it. And then the second aspect is we're tuning our program in such a way that the caregiver can learn to detect changes in their loved one's condition, which is kind of the precursor for preventing a hospitalization. A simple example is if there's a change in the frequency of urination in the member, right? Something could be going on. And I think we've all heard stories about how important it is to catch a urinary tract infection before it becomes septic or somebody gets dizzy and falls and breaks their hip and so forth. So by tuning it for outcomes for the care recipient, our program is quite different than we believe all other approaches are to caregiving, which are focused primarily on the caregiver.
Oh, that's amazing. It's great that you're focused on both aspects of that caregiving, which I haven't heard a lot of companies doing. Can I ask, what made you seek out validation with the Validation Institute?
Well, as we all know, particularly in like Medicare Advantage, where you have lots of actuaries in the companies, the whole thing is about credibility, right? I mean, when I think about a typical health plan or risk-taking provider, there's a lot of noise of people saying, hey, I can do X, Y, and Z. And then if you are on the other side, you're like, how do I know if this is real or not? So we just, we're building our whole company, everything we do around credibility, and having independent third parties kind of looking over our shoulder and saying, look, we agree with the approach you've taken, we validated the results. That's super important to us. It's almost table stakes if you want to be successful in the market that we've selected.
Well, that's great. And credibility, as you know, is very important to us and making sure people understand how you approached your study. Can you talk a little bit about the design of the clinical study to prove your cost savings?
Yeah, so when you think about it, because we are looking at outcomes recipient by actually supporting the caregiver, it's a little to say, how would you do a study? So we did it. We used claims data, right? So we received all the claims data from the health plan, and we sort of looked 6 months prior to when people started the program. We sort of get everybody matched up in terms of, same age or the same sex, the same geographic location, the same cost. So we did a propensity matching to make sure that we had 160 people in the program, we had 400 people in the comparison group, that those were matched up. And then, as you go along, you track outcomes in the program group, and you use a difference of differences approach to make sure that you are, addressing some of the regression to the mean objections that most people should and would have. So we're kind of addressing that by taking a difference of differences approach, and it gives you an ability to now attribute statistical significance to the results. So in our case, we actually found that over 6 months, we reduced inpatient admissions by 80% and medical costs by 53%. And you can see that the first reaction is this can't possibly be true. But when you recognize that a caregiver can detect a changing condition, which is the most important thing to prevent a hospitalization, you sort of realize that caregivers have a superpower. Their superpower is to observe their loved one for a changing condition. If they take action, tremendous benefit can attribute to the care recipient who stays out of the hospital, and to the caregiver whose burden is lower because their loved one doesn't decline.
That's just awesome. Just out of curiosity, how does this validation differentiate you from the competition?
So, nobody wants to say they have no competition, but at least today, we're the first and only company in Medicare that has a study like this. So I think where we are looking for differentiation is when we approach a chief medical officer in a health plan who's, understandably skeptical. The competition is like doing nothing, right? They don't know what we can do. And then to first order, they don't believe what we can do. So bringing them, a study that has been independently validated puts us into the realm of, okay, this feels like it could work. So for us, it's really the credibility and almost competing against doing nothing. I think over time, other companies will come into the space, and we'll certainly, if they don't have a validated study, right, that'll obviously be something we point out. But at the moment, it's the credibility of the results and the competition of doing nothing that we're overcoming by bringing them, the validated results that we have.
That's great. Well, Dirk, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today, and congratulations on building an amazing company and solution that truly is making a difference. And I encourage all of you to learn more about Ceresti by downloading the free validation report at validationinstitute.com. Again, thank you, Dirk, and have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Benny. Take care. Bye-bye.